Welcome to the 938 podcast. I hope that you've enjoyed watching this over the last few months. We have given you a lot of information concerning missions around the world, shared some insights about missions and the need for missions. We've also given you information about the mission office and the services that we provide. And then from time to time, we interview missionaries. And so today I would like to introduce to you Rickey and Angela Freeman. They are missionaries in Argentina. So welcome to our podcast.
Thank you so much.
First of all, how long have you been in Argentina as missionaries?
Well, we were officially approved in 1995, but we arrived in Argentina in April of 1997. So we've been missionaries since 1995.
Yeah, well, good. And so that's about 2 years or so that you spent raising your support to go there.
Yes, I think it was actually a year and 10 months. The average amount of time was over 2 years.
Yes.
So we were extremely happy and thankful to be able to get it done in a less amount of time.
Right. Well, that means you really worked at it, and you wanted to work hard to get there.
Correct. I hardly saw Angela for many months because I was spending so much time on the phone. But yes,
exactly.
we were able to get it done quickly.
Yeah, I remember. Did you have cell phones when you first went out? So our phone bills back then were pretty big, weren't they?
Yes, they were.
Because we didn't have the cell phones to make the calls on.
Well, I have to give a shout out to my home church, Open Door Baptist Church in Harrison, Arkansas, because they paid for that for us while we were there. So that was a big blessing. That
is really good. Now, Angela, you are a missionary kid and lived in Argentina as a kid. In fact, I think you were born there, right? Tell us a little bit about that.
Well, my parents went to Argentina before I was born. They weren't expecting to have me. I was just a surprise baby.
Okay.
But yeah, I lived there all my life till I came to college.
Mm-hmm. Well, good. So I take it you like Argentina.
Love it.
And the people, of course.
Yes.
Yes. Do you speak good Spanish?
I think I do.
I'm sure you do. And so did you, what about schooling? Did you go to local schools? Did you do homeschooling or both? Or
When I was like 4, I went to kindergarten at a Christian school. And I went K4, K5, first grade. And then we came on furlough and went to a public school while we were stateside. And then my mom was introduced to ACE. So we homeschooled from
Okay, good. I did a couple of years ACE as well. And I think missionary kids probably have experienced.
Back in the day?
Yes, back in the day. Missionary kids get different kinds of education because of travel back states and back to the field and all that.
Well, we were blessed. Our sending church opened up a Christian school, an ACE school. So when we were on furlough, we got to go.
Yeah.
So I got both.
Sure, good. Now, your parents retired a few years back. And your mom is still living.
Yes.
And how is she doing?
She's doing great.
Yeah.
She can't see, she's blind, but she's brave enough, and I guess confident enough. She's been traveling, visiting her different kids. She got to go spend several months with us in Argentina before COVID.
Wow.
So
wow.
really good.
That's neat.
Yes,
That's neat.
Good.
I remember going to Argentina the one time I've ever been, but I got to spend time with your parents and go around with them a little bit, stay in their home, and that was a really special time for me. Really neat people, for sure.
They are.
Yes, yes. So, Rickey, tell me a little bit about how you all met.
Would you like the long version or the short version?
Well, I'd like the really good version.
Okay. Well, first and foremost, as I've already mentioned, Open Door Baptist Church is our sending church, our home church. I grew up in Arkansas. I always tell people I'm very proud to be a hillbilly. I'm very proud to be a hillbilly now that speaks more than one language. So
yes,
I come to the Lord whenever I was 11 there in Harrison, Arkansas at Open Door Baptist Church. Through youth camps, through the youth activities, felt the Lord calling me into the ministry, but I was very highly involved in sports, baseball, basketball. Now, I know when I say that coming from a small community, it doesn't mean much, but I was doing real well.
Yes.
Thinking the Lord was leading me towards that. Roughly about my senior year, junior year, I began to realize that the Lord was really calling me to do something else. But I wasn't for sure of that. Right before I got ready to graduate, I realized the Lord was actually calling me to BBC because my pastor, of course, at that time and even today, promotes BBC and knew all about it, but just really didn't feel like the Lord was calling me to BBC because he allowed me to have to receive some scholarships that we can get out in English to go to play for baseball.
Yeah.
Well, about 2 weeks prior to that, I really confirmed that God was calling me into the ministry, so come off to BBC. While I was in BBC, as I tell everybody, I wasn't here to look for a wife. I was here to study. I was here to learn more about the ministry. And as always, when a person comes to BBC,
that's what all the guys say.
That's what they say.
all the
Yeah.
guys say. Yeah.
As most people know, even at that time, it was known as what? Baptist
Yes.
Bridal College. Well, after a couple of years studying, the Lord allowed us to cross paths, and I won't go into all the details. She shared with me about her upbringing, about her family, about Argentina. And as I've told people from day one, I was like, well, that's interesting, but I want to know more about you, not necessarily the field of Argentina. As the Lord allowed us to begin to get to know each other, learn about her calling back to Argentina as far as she had surrendered to be a missionary, whether it be Argentina to wherever. And once again, that's great, that's awesome, but really was not feeling the call at that time. Before we officially got married, we said, well, if we ever get a chance to go to Argentina, it'd be awesome to go down and to be able to meet my in-laws there and see her country in that sense. She graduated in 1992. I graduated in 1993. We received accepted a position in Tulsa, Oklahoma as co-pastor, and went off with the idea of going to Argentina. At that time, we mentioned that to the pastor, and the pastor said, that's no problem. We served 3 months, I believe it was, or 4 months as co-pastor, and then headed off to Argentina to go visit my in-laws for 3 months.
3 months, wow.
The maximum, of course, that you can be in a country without all the permission. So as we got there, I tell people, once again, being a hillbilly from the hills of Arkansas, we're common folks just the same as you, and God speaks to us as he does to the other people.
Right.
And what happened is my father-in-law, as I've come to do the same, began to play the Holy Spirit in a roundabout way, showing us this big city, showing me specifically the places that need the gospel.
Yeah.
In my heart of hearts, I was going, somebody needs to be there. There needs to be more missionaries. Not knowing that she's in the background praying, okay, Lord, open his eyes to the need. Well, we finished there helping out youth meetings and such, came back to the States. Basically what happened, the Lord began to deal with me as concerning missions. I had seen missions growing up in Open Door. It was on the forefront, but just never really felt that call. After we got back to the States, I realized, okay, Lord, I feel like you're calling me, and I say me because I wanted to make sure it was a calling on our lives, but specifically me as well. So as always goes, as a co-pastor, we were doing everything and anything. We had the opportunity to take over the missions conference, to plan a missions conference. And of course, the Lord got a hold of my heart, and I surrendered to be a missionary. We surrendered to be missionaries to the field of Argentina, and that was in 1994, correct? Am I saying correct? 1994.
Wow. Yeah, great. It's always neat to see how the Lord works in individual lives to bring them to the point where he has called them and they understand that calling.
Correct. I did not want to go out on deputation when people say, well, he's a henpecked husband, he's following his wife back to Argentina because that is her home. I wanted to make sure it was a calling on my life.
Yes.
And we did have some say, oh, you're going because Angela's going. And I could say, no, that's not the case. We're going back because God has called us to go back.
Yeah. Yeah.
Argentina was a topic we couldn't talk about for a long time.
Is that right?
Until he finally surrendered.
Sure.
Yep.
Yeah. Okay. Well, neat. So when you finished high school then and you came back to BBC,
Yes.
you came here to study. Probably your parents encouraged you BBC because they went to BBC.
I have two brothers here too.
Oh, that's right.
That
Yeah.
helped.
Yeah, that was good to be able to have them here. But you came here thinking you'd probably be going back as missionary? or?
Actually, I surrendered when I was 14 to be a missionary, but Argentina wasn't in my mind. I wanted
Right.
to go somewhere more exciting.
Yeah.
But it took
Sure.
a long process for me to finally say, okay, I'll go back.
Yeah.
But not to Buenos Aires.
Right.
But
That's where you are.
that's where I am, and it's fine. It's good.
Sure. Well, neat. So tell me a little bit about you got to Argentina then, your ministry. How did things unfold there for you?
Well, for starters, we had the privilege, and I mean that from the bottom of my heart, of working with my in-laws. The opportunity to be under a veteran missionary, other veteran missionaries that were there at the time as well, Brother Jimmy Strickland and others that I could observe. Of course, speaking perfectly Spanish. She was
Yes.
comfortable in that sense, but I was out of my comfort zone.
Yes.
On deputation, tried to learn Spanish. Matter of fact, I say when we had to go
Didn't
through
work.
the candidate school time and
Yeah.
what was the name of
Language acquisition.
correct. I didn't do the best,
Yeah.
and I knew I wouldn't do the best. So anyway, when we got to Argentina, that was the main focus, but was privileged to be able to observe, work under my father-in-law, my mother-in-law, with the idea to eventually, of course, start a work. But I come to find out pretty quickly that in Argentina, the standard way of doing things is not necessarily there, because
Yeah.
it takes a long time,
Right.
referring to starting a work. So I was observing, finding how things work in Argentina and learning. I realized it was going to take me longer to learn the language as well. So after roughly 3 years, some things that transpired with the government, not necessarily saying if we would forfeit my residency, but we had to stay longer, which was a blessing in disguise, because we were able to continue to learn. Stayed with my in-laws for roughly 3 years.
We didn't stay with
Well, we didn't
them,
stay with them. We worked with
Yes.
them, better said, and then come back to the States to raise additional support for the work, and arrived back in I want to say April of 1999. We determined during that time, as Angela's already mentioned, we live in Buenos Aires. For those of you that don't know, it's 15 million people,
Wow.
humongous city.
Yes.
Therefore, I was not lost, but I was like, this is a big task.
Sure.
So we began to do a lot of traveling, had some Christian Argentines take us around to these cities within cities. I always like to say it's kind of like the Bronx in
Yes.
New York City and such, and begin to narrow down exactly where the Lord was wanting us to go. So we came back, was able to be here for a little bit less than a year, if I recall correctly, and then went back to start a work in the city of Moreno, which is a suburb of the city of Buenos Aires.
Wow. Good. And you also have a brother and sister-in-law there. And tell me a little bit about them, and where are they in the same city, or are they somewhere
No,
else?
they're about, depending on who's driving, about 2.5 hours
Yes.
away.
Yes.
We do work youth camps together.
Mhm.
My brother's the director, he's the co-director. And we run the whole month of January, we run all the youth camps.
Okay.
So we do work together a lot.
Yes.
We get along great, so that's
That
good
helps.
too. That helps. But we don't really see each other as
Sure.
much as we would like to.
Sure. So you mentioned camp, and I know that's part of your ministry, but why do you have it in January? Here in the
Summer.
States, it's cold then.
That's our summer.
It's your summer.
Summer
Yeah.
starts in December and goes through the end of February, March.
Okay. Yeah. And do you have a lot of churches that join in with the camp there? Or do you have multiple weeks with different churches? How does that work?
We have multiple weeks of different age groups.
Okay.
And we do have multiple churches. At one time, we had a lot
Many
more,
more, yeah.
but it got too big.
Okay.
We couldn't
Yes.
have that many kids. So
Also, the economy began to affect the prices and things, so a lot of them were not able to bust them in, as they say. But
Sure.
at one time, we had roughly 25, I believe, participating churches.
Okay.
Now, over the last few years, that's dwindled down. Once again, prices and such. So I think we have roughly sometimes 11 to 12 churches representative in Buenos Aires that participate.
Yeah. That's good.
Um,
And I'm sure the camp is a very vital part to your ministry
Oh.
as far as future leaders and all that.
Correct, yes. Of course, for the time, we can't sit here and share everything, but throughout all these years of my father-in-law's ministry, as well as my brother-in-law and us as well, there's been so many young people that have been not only saved but called in the ministry. They always like to say there's been people married at camp, so it's been a very, very big influence,
Yeah.
particularly for Buenos Aires. There are a few other camps, not necessarily independent Baptists, but other Baptists that are there. But we think we have the best
Yeah.
facilities and the best place, and God has worked in so many lives so that, as Angela's already said, it's not just one camp. We go pretty much the whole month, breaking up the ages. We also have, in the month of February, we have what's called the
it's a missionary retreat.
missionary retreat,
National
the
pastors
national
and
pastors
Okay.
and workers that come
Mhm.
in. So
Yeah.
it is very vital to the ministry in Argentina, as well as the surrounding countries that participate.
Yeah. Yeah.
And we also have married couples retreats.
Okay.
So
Good.
Ladies' meetings at camp. So there's
ladies retreats.
They enjoy that, I'm sure.
Yeah.
Mhm.
We enjoy
Well,
doing it.
Yes. Yes.
anyone that lives in a big city knows that real estate is prime.
Right.
Therefore, it's interesting to look back and see how God directed my in-laws at that time to a pig farm way outside of the city of Buenos Aires, and how they begin to transfer that, begin to mold that into something else, and it became a beautiful facility.
Yes.
And now Buenos Aires is continuing to grow and getting closer, but still we're out away from the city, so we can take the kids and the young people. And
Sure.
therefore, it's to get them away, as any campus from the world. And God's did a lot of great things. A lot of work, but God has done a lot of great things.
That's good. I remember visiting the area, the camp, when I got to visit, and I was very impressed with the facilities and just the location, thinking this is a great place to bring people to, get them out, away from the city.
Yep.
And the city people love it
Oh, yeah.
because it's out in the country. It's just,
Sure.
According to American standards and other standards, it's nothing fancy, but for Argentines and the location, it is a wonderful place.
Yeah.
Once again, a lot of work goes into those
yes.
that know. It's a lot of work, but God has been good. We've had many problems, break-ins, floods, but it's still standing and still doing good there.
Oh, good. So then tell me about your church. I've had the opportunity to be in one of the services there, and so tell us a little bit about your church and the ministry you have there.
Sure. First and foremost, we started the work in 2001. We were able to get an older building inside the city, which the Moreno is a city place, as we already referred to. And as always, things are very expensive in the city. But God gave us a wonderful place at that time. We ended up spending about $100 a month for rent. Fast forward throughout all the years, the rent went up, of course. Things began to change. God allowed us to buy a place, a permanent place, which is very important in so many cultures that you have a permanent building. With that said, the name of the church is the Iglesia Bautista Bíblica Independiente, the Independent Bible Baptist Church. We started out with a family from my father-in-law's church, roughly 30 minutes commute time, but there was a family that actually lived close to where we were starting the work, which was a blessing to start a work with someone in the seats, as they say.
For sure.
And as always, it was rough. Once again, coming from my standpoint as a missionary, learning a language. Don't ask Angela for the notepad of all the mistakes I made. But always looking back, it's like God did the work, and that's the most important thing. So we began to have a lot of response because the Lord led us to a location where there was close to a hospital. And as always, when there's needs, it's physical, particularly, people are looking for help. So we were able to meet a lot of people's needs spiritually in the area, and the church began to grow, began to see more people come in. We're very, very active with young people and of course Angela and her degree as far as children. So the church continued to grow. We were excited to finally be in a new location. As always, the honeymoon stage, we had a lot of people coming. Our main auditorium is not necessarily that big, but we can house roughly 85 to 100 packed together.
Yes.
So we were thinking the Lord was going to allow us to expand a little more in this new location. Unfortunately, as always, when the honeymoon is over, things begin to dwindle down. God has been working, continues to work. We thought we might have someone that was coming up in the ranks to eventually turn over the work. And as I've already mentioned, I found out in Argentina, as well as many other countries, Uruguay, that it's a long process.
Yes.
So with all that said, we're continuing to hoe and plow and do everything we can. We have a wonderful group of people. We have a wonderful new group of people that has come in and, I won't say revitalized the church, but has showed a very wonderful spirit, a servant spirit.
Yeah.
Most Argentines are known for being very proud and hard. So we do have some good Argentines as well, but it's made a difference in our church.
Sure.
Our goal is to continue, one day turn it over. But once again, I learned from my father-in-law and some other missionaries, sometimes the mother church scenario might work out. Main church, sending people out from that church. So our church, in reference to the Independent Bible Church, is doing well. Thank the Lord. And over this past year, as everyone knows what has happened, very trying, but God is still at work in the church.
Yeah, that's great. You've mentioned the language a few times. Have you learned it pretty well? I don't know if mastering it is the word, but have you learned it well? You're preaching in it? And
Sure. I don't think any missionary that has to learn a language masters the language, but I will say after about 3.5 years, I felt very comfortable. I can, since that time, did everything, teaching, preaching, understand. There's certain things, of course, I don't, terms and stuff. Yes, I do make mistakes. I fall back on my hillbilly roots.
Yeah, there you
and
go.
I have an excuse in that sense. But yes, I don't have any problem understanding. There are many stories with every missionary that, of course, Angela could share. But I feel comfortable. My problem is when we come on furlough, speaking and teaching in English, I get back to Argentina. It takes a while to get back in the groove, as we say. Same thing in English. I have a hard time talking in English when I come back. But that's who I am. But yes, I do understand.
So, and I'd like you to think about a funny illustration of mistake you made.
Just
okay?
one? Just
So,
one?
yeah, but I'd like to ask you, would you say to a new missionary going to the field, it's important to learn the language then, or can you get by with trying to use an interpreter or anything like that? How would you advise them?
Oh, 100%. I would say they definitely need to learn the language. Now, I've been told there are other languages that are much more harder than Spanish, Castellano, as we say. And I'm so grateful God didn't call us to Japan or those countries where it's just extremely. So I can't speak for them, but I personally say yes, you need to do everything you can to learn the language, not only to be able to communicate, but also it shows that the people where you're serving that you're there, you want to communicate, you want to reach them. Once again, I'm not saying anything bad about the ones that have interpreters, but it speaks volumes to the people, even when we do murder the language, even though we do have mistakes. So yes, my scenario, my father-in-law encouraged me to go to Argentina because Spanish, most people think Spanish is Spanish.
Right.
That's not the case. And so he encouraged me to go there, learn Spanish there, learn Castellano. Therefore, to this day, when I'm talking to somebody that does know Spanish, they recognize that I learned Spanish in Argentina.
Right.
Now, once again, the accent is there. But please, yes, missionaries that are learning, go to the country or and get immersed in the culture there and learn the language.
Yeah, good, good. All right, Angela, share one with us, or a couple if you want.
Well, I don't know how to say it all in English but
Do your best. Do your best.
it was back when we first started the church. I'll do that one. And he was preaching on living a pure life. And the word for pure in Spanish is pura, but he doesn't always get the R. He gets it mixed up with the D sometimes.
Okay.
But he made himself understood. So the whole message, it was,
Sure.
When we come down to the final,
Yes.
his conclusion that we should all live, but he used the wrong word, and it was a bad word, and that's the kind of life he told
Which
us.
sounds very similar, but there's a difference.
Yes.
I lost it.
Yeah.
We shouldn't.
And so
That's funny.
obviously I couldn't correct him.
Yeah, sure.
So we made it through the invitation and everything when we were on he saw me laughing, so he knew.
I knew something had transpired. Yeah.
So I told him in English what he had said.
Yeah.
He goes, I didn't. I said, you did.
Yeah. That's funny. That's good.
Well, the list is very, very long.
Yeah.
And I am very grateful that the Lord, I will say, installed in me, but gave me the attitude, I need to get better. I need to learn, because some do get offended and they become introverts, as we were talking earlier, and they don't want to be corrected.
Yeah.
I want to be corrected, and I need to be corrected.
Sure.
But there are things that happen that just slips out. You
And
know
when
that.
it happens in the middle of a message, you can't.
Yeah, you just keep going.
Can't fix it.
Hopefully you can get them back into listening.
Yeah. And the people normally are very, very understanding.
They're nicer than I am.
Yeah. Sure. Well, I got my mistakes too, so I can't make it hard on you because I've made plenty of them as well when I was in Kenya.
Well, I've got a double whammy because not only in Spanish and learning another language, but being from Arkansas, I get hounded all the time, and I say words in English, and I get confused. So
Sure,
so
yeah,
far,
you
so
get it
good.
both ways then.
As I tell people, it's like water on the duck's back to me. It doesn't bother
Yeah.
me. But yes, it has been rough, but thankfully I do understand. I preach fine. Well, I think I preach fine. I have a tendency to go really fast, but I think the Lord is using us and using this hillbilly.
Amen. Now, you were down there when COVID started and all this. How did that affect your lives to begin with? We'll talk about the church in a minute, but how about with you and the living? And because Argentina, from what I saw in the news, was pretty tight and locked down.
Only one person per family was allowed out.
Okay. Wow.
So Ricky went and did the shopping.
Mm-hmm.
Because he was a minister, he could get special permission to go a little further. Otherwise, you had to stay in your neighborhood to do shopping.
Mm-hmm.
So that was
Wow.
that was rough.
Sure.
In the beginning, it was it was like most people thought, for a week or 2 weeks, and
Yeah.
it was very, very strict. Police were doing their job, stopping people on the roads. Of course, they had to have permission to be out. As time went on, it kept getting longer, so it was very stressful, of course, for everyone everywhere in the world. As far as in Argentina, they were being very serious. My brother-in-law, which Angela's already mentioned, was needing to made a trip into BA, and they were beginning to get even more serious as far as locking things down. So it was stressful, very stressful. Thankfully, the Lord had provided us a wonderful home, a bigger home than normal, so we had our own space.
Yes.
But I don't know if you know, but it went from 1 month to 2 months, and then we ended up being in quarantine lockdown for 9 months.
Yeah.
So personally, it was trying. We have a teenager still in home. So it was hard, but thank the Lord, we were able to cope, continue to minister, which I'm sure we'll talk about in a moment, but we definitely survived.
Yeah.
Very thankful that our home is as big as it is,
Yeah.
because it could have been a lot worse in a small home.
Sure.
Well, as far as home life, it didn't really change that much as far as our family, because I homeschool.
Sure.
So we had planned on coming on furlough. That didn't happen. We just started school, and so we just kind of continued
The same routine,
the
but
same
just
routine, except we couldn't leave the house.
Right. Right.
But
But that you can kind of get a little restless with that, though, too.
Oh, yeah.
oh yes.
So.
I learned new crafts and new.
Oh yeah. Sure. Sure. You know, I remember we communicated a couple times during that time, and you would share how things were pretty tight and difficult, and just kind of wearing on everybody just because you can't get around as
Right.
normal.
Being back in the States at this time, people talk about the lockdown, and I always ask, well, how long did it last? And they say, well, maybe a month, and I said, well,
And
imagine,
what was it like?
imagine being
Yes.
truly locked down and
Right.
not being able to do anything. And once again, not only Argentina, many other countries, but it was
Sure.
it was a rough time. But once again, we continued on the routine, of course, ministering the best possible. So we definitely survived. Unfortunately, which was shared in just a moment, Argentina went back into lockdown, and we were thankfully able to get out. So the Lord got us out in that sense in time, because as we say, we weren't loosening our marbles, but we were getting to the
Right.
point where we need to change.
We needed out.
Sure. Yeah. And you had scheduled a furlough,
Yes.
and then you couldn't. So,
Yes.
and it's good the Lord enabled that to happen.
Exactly.
Tell us about the ministry then. How did you do ministry during COVID with all that lockdown?
Well, most of our people in the beginning had some difficulty as far as getting on Zoom or Facebook. So in the beginning, it was like, okay, I'll record the message and we'll send it out. But I like personal contact. I like that interaction. So we began to talk about how can we do this live. And I think the second week into it, once again, the government told us 2 weeks. We realized, okay, this is one service we'll do. So it was really difficult the first time, because most of our people didn't know how to necessarily go about watching Zoom, which at that time Zoom was not that popular in Argentina. So as we begin to realize this is going to go on, we continue to put more effort into not only Facebook Live, but doing classes, women's classes, men classes, teens. And so people begin to realize how to function with Zoom and how to function with the others as well. So we basically, on the run, was teaching people, some of the elderly people, the ones that are not so savvy in the tech stuff. So it worked out real well, because everyone had connection. Some had problems, as always, but we began to notice everybody was faithful, everybody was attending. There's always a few that slack off. So as we begin to get into the routine, it definitely changed our week in preparation, because once again, we thought this was going to be a 2-week scenario, and we began to learn more and more about technology and how to do things better. And so thank the Lord, our people were responsive through that. No way does it take away going to church. We know that.
Sure.
So overall, we were pleased with how people began to be there live and be able to interact. God did not give me the ability to necessarily sing that well. I can, and I have led singing, and thankfully Angela's very good at the piano and music. But we were lacking that as far as a congregation, because I was using some videos and the people still wanted to sing. So we began to adapt and figure out how to do things live and have live time. So the ministry continued on.
Well, one of the men in the church who had never had the courage to do it in person. He was like, Pastor, can I lead the singing?
Okay, wow.
So we started getting together with him. He's a policeman, so we were able to pull some strings, and we would record the music with him.
Okay.
And now he's the song leader.
Wow.
It
Just
took
took that little
it
bit.
took that to get him
Sure.
to do it. So that was really good.
And the
That's
same thing
neat.
came about with technology. We have someone that said, I would love to take that over. So once again, it was a hard time, but it was also a wonderful time to see
Yeah.
God working in people's lives, even though it's through
Sure.
this, through
Well, in Argentina, everybody uses WhatsApp. That's standard social media. And I realized that the ladies in our group were getting scared when we first went into lockdown. So I decided to do a daily Bible study with them, just something real simple,
Sure.
just answering 5 questions. But I hadn't realized that they didn't have a personal devotional time, a personal time with God every day.
Right.
And they all got on board. They started doing that every day, and they're still doing it
Wow,
to this
there you
day.
go.
So we had a daily one. We had our weekly Bible study, and then through WhatsApp, we figured out how to do a ladies' meeting, which was not live.
Sure.
It was all just through texting and emojis.
Okay. That's neat.
Best
Yeah.
fellowship time ever.
Right.
But it worked out, and it kept us unified as a group.
Yeah.
So it's just trying to get creative.
we learned
Sure.
to adapt.
That's great.
The only problem was it was a lot longer than most, so
Yes.
it was a wonderful time, but it was a long time.
Sure.
Long time.
Yeah. Well, when are you looking to go back, if possible?
We do have a date for the end of December. If the Lord allows us to go back and to get in the country, depends on the scenario. We have a son that will be graduating in December, so therefore we're here to see him graduate. And if we can get back in the end of the year, we will.
Yeah.
We've already talked about it's a very busy time, being in that summertime camps.
Yep.
If they allow
Very,
us.
very concerned to see if they're
Yes.
going to allow us to be able to have camps and those things.
Sure.
So the plan is to go back at the end of the year.
Yeah.
After seeing how a lot of churches sent their kids here to camp and came back with COVID,
Yeah.
it's scary to think about what would happen if we did it there. So
Sure. Yes.
But we definitely
Yeah.
need wisdom. My
concern.
brother-in-law as well, Mike Todd, and
Yeah.
preparations are there, but
Yeah.
who knows? But we'll be leaving if the Lord allows the end of the year.
Okay. Well, good. Well, it's good to spend some time with you here today. I do have one more question. It might lead into another one, but
Okay?
as a missionary, we talk about Project 938, praying for more missionaries. Do you need more missionaries in Argentina?
Oh, we don't have enough time to talk about how much we need them. Yes. One of the things that made a big impact on me whenever I felt the Lord calling me there to be a missionary, looking at Buenos Aires specifically, was there's just so much need. Everywhere you go, there's need.
Yeah.
So being there now for 25 years, we need more workers. We need more help. Of course, we're doing everything we can to raise them up and all the other missionaries as well. But yes, we need more. The more, the better.
Yeah.
And I don't want to say the faster the better, because I'm very, very strong on preparation.
Yes.
Grateful for what all you all do, as well as the fellowship to get missionaries prepared. Because we've seen so many, whether it's other organizations, missions board come, that were not prepared. But yes, faster the better, and more the better.
Yeah. You said 15 million in Buenos Aires, so I think there's a few more people than just beside your area that need to be reached, right?
Oh, definitely. Even with all the independent Baptist missionaries of the missions boards, I believe I could be corrected, we have a list of all of them. I think there's roughly 20-something missionaries, American missionaries there in the city of Buenos Aires, other national workers. But to this day, there's not a church that's running 1 million in itself, because 25 for 15 is nothing,
Sure.
a drop in the bucket.
Yeah.
But yes, we definitely need them.
And then you have the rest of the country.
Oh, yes.
I've been to Argentina. I've seen the need, and it's unbelievable. The opportunities are there. The need is great.
Yes.
We need more missionaries.
Yes, very true. So
All
please
right.
send
And
them
we're
our
not
way.
getting younger.
Yeah.
At
Well, you both look young.
Yeah, well, thank you. At one time, we were the youngest missionaries in Argentina.
Yes.
So many came and left.
Yes.
Good friends, Ben and Rochelle, I believe they are the youngest BBFI missionaries in
Yes.
Argentina. But yeah, we're not as young as we used to be, but we are young. But yes, we need good young missionaries
Need
to
some
come
more.
that will
Amen.
be there and stay there. That's the
Yeah.
key.
Amen. Well, I hope you've enjoyed this time of meeting the Freemans and missionaries in Argentina. And it's neat to just hear their story. It's neat to hear how they met, where they grown up on the mission field, things like that. And then also their ministry. Even during COVID, God still is working and doing some great things around the world. So I hope that you'll continue to pray for them. They've already had to leave some of their sons behind, and that's not easy, and then another one coming up. So, pray for the Freemans as they are preparing for that, but also wanting to go back to the field and continue to do the ministry there. And in addition, please pray with all of us that God would send more laborers. That's what Jesus requested actually in Matthew 9:38, that we would pray to the Lord of the harvest, that he would send forth more laborers. So let's continue praying, and as God's calling, let's pray that people will answer that call and will go. Thanks for joining us here today on our 938 podcast, and I hope you'll even join us again next week on Tuesday morning. God bless you.